So now we are in block 2 of HRD. First block we read through planning. Second block is more about HR management. So we completed introduction of HR management and we completed training and development. These are the two units that we completed. So now we are into workforce diversity and multicultural activities. So why it is part of HRM? This is one of the core aspects as far as human resources are concerned, being culturally really sensitive. And so this unit talks about why it is very important for a company to be culturally sensitive and what is the role that HR is going to play. That is the whole aim of this particular chapter. So it starts with the diversity and then it goes into multicultural aspects. Okay, so like any other thing, when it starts with diversity, it starts with the definition of the diversity, right? So basically, what is diversity? So diversity is nothing but it is actually the similarities and differences in characters or age. So basically, if you have a team who has got multiple, what do you say? I mean, dissimilarities or similarities, both differences and also similarities. So that is actually a diverse team. So this is what is workforce diversity is all about. So the differences could be gender, it could be race, it could be disabilities, it could be culture, etc., etc. Right? Um, so, in other words, this workforce diversity can also be called as cultural diversity or cultural variety. Right? So, so the whole aspect that needs to be understood when we are talking about culture, people are very very similar to each other. At the same time, every person is different. So both aspects are something which are coexisting. So there are similarities between all of us. At the same time, there are actually, we are not same, exactly same. Two people are not same. So this is what management needs to understand when they talk about the diversity. Okay, so basically, so there are two concepts when it comes to this particular diversity which managers need to be aware of. First concept is stereotype. We kind of read in the other unit as well, in the cross cultural training aspect, right? So stereotype is nothing but it is like generalization of things. The moment you see somebody based on his race, based on his gender, you are having some assumption saying that this person behaves in this way, this person can do this person cannot do this, and those kind of things. That is what is stereotyping. So basically you are coming with predefined notion based on certain characteristics of that person. Okay, so what is prejudice is basically it is something which is you have a preconceived judgment on a particular person. So basically you have certain idea that this is how the person is. So unlike stereotyping, this is not about smaller characteristics for the unknown person. So over some time, you can actually form this particular impression saying that, okay, so and so person is hardworking. So even if he doesn't hard work, you actually have some a mentality or some kind of an attitude towards that person saying that ye banda to kaam karega hi. So you will actually tend to ignore certain small things about it. Okay, so generally this stereotyping over the time can lead to this particular judgment. Okay, so these are the two aspects which I mean diversity, when it comes to diversity, managers needs to be careful about, right? Ultimate aim of this diversity aware is to actually remove these notions. Okay, so that is what is the aim of this particular diversity related aspect, right, from the management point of view. So why exactly diversity is required? Okay, so first thing is, we have companies now across multiple locations, multiple places. So you're obviously you can't avoid diversity when it comes to having multiple democracies in picture. Okay, so similarly there are certain laws which are actually governing. So some of the industries are compelled to maintain the diversity. That is why diversity needs to be maintained. So if you are not complying, then you are actually punishable, right? So there is reason why those particular laws are. I mean, government wants that equal opportunity culture to be preserving. Hence, they actually enforce organizations to do that. Growth of international business. Obviously, if you want to expand your business to the other countries without recruiting the other countries, you can't really get things right in that country. So competitive pressures, right? So basically, if you have diverse staff, there are more chances that your products would be much more acceptable for the market. So for example, let's say you are actually making iPad, unless and until you have few female staff who are actually detecting the usability of iPad, you might not be able to understand what is the usability problem a typical woman might have with iPad, right? So so that way, the more diverse is your staff, the better in your end product would be, the quality would be better, right? They will have different viewpoints. Okay, so their thought process will be different. They will bring a lot of viewpoints into picture. So it provides competitive pressures, and also will have a diverse viewpoints to actually deal with these markets, right? So what are the various dimensions of diversity? We all know about these dimensions: age, gender, ethnicity, education, and other things like language, sexuality, disabilities, and all those stuff, right? So these are some of the characteristics. So basically, using these characteristics, you, your organization might have employees of different ages, right? Similarly, different gender, etc., etc. So when it comes to gender, so there are actually, I mean, there are various concepts which are actually prevailing. One is equal pay for both the genders, and also there is something called as a glass ceiling effect. Okay, so glass ceiling effect is nothing but you having a notion that women doesn't cannot do this, or they they might not actually be right fit for top management. Those kind of notions are called as glass ceiling effect. So so those particular notions needs to be prevented. Okay, so I mean, equally, even from the education point of view, so you might have a company which does have both blue collar employees and white collar employees, right? There are certain aspects which are same for all the employees. So for example, you need to actually provide the skill upgrades for both the employees. Maybe skills that they might actually doing depends on the job, but you should not distinguish them based on the education that they have. So these are some of the diversity. So apart from primary dimensions that we talked about, there is something called as a secondary dimension. Okay, so secondary dimensions are not really a permanent status, rather they can change over the time. For example, marital status. I have joined the company as a bachelor but got married in between, so my status has changed, right? So basically in that way. So this is not a permanent factor, but still the diversity would be there from these secondary dimensions as well. So I might actually change my religion over the time, right? So those kind of things. My political orientation might be different. So at some point of time, I might be a Congress supporter and then BJP supporter and again Congress. It might change. So all those particular things are secondary dimensions which are not permanent, rather they keep changing. So then comes value of diversity. Okay, so this is one of the question which actually came in. So there is a concept called as assimilation that happens. What is assimilation? See, suppose you are an organization and you have majority of the people who are male, for example. Okay, then you might actually start expecting even females who are minority of that company to behave like males, maybe working late hours or whatever it is, which probably would not be very comfortable for the women employees, right? So this is only for example. So so they would, so it is like whole concept here is you are expecting minority to accustom to the majority fit, right? So that is what is assimilation. Okay, so assimilation is something which it happens in lot of organizations where there is a dominant group especially, right? So if you have something like a majority, this assimilation keeps happening. Okay, and many organizations do have performance aspects, incentive aspects, etc., etc. Even those things might be fitting the need of dominant group. Okay, so all these things would be, adding up to this particular assimilation. So value of diversity is nothing but you are as an organization trying to eliminate this assimilation, that is value diversity. So the organization believes that this assimilation needs to be removed. So this assimilation is something that the organization attacks and remove. So these are truly diverse organizations, and they have well composed workforce. Okay, and they actually take care of minorities, according to their particular culture, their particular need, rather than they will not fit those particular employees into the other majority group. Okay, so obviously there are advantages with this particular thing. So I mean, the interpersonal conflicts that might happen would be less in case of these kind of organizations when you have value of diversity. Okay, so now next section is managing diversity, right? Individual approaches to managing diversity. So this is like the way individuals approach, right? And then it goes into way organization approach. So from the individual's point of view, how exactly this particular diversity is managed? There are two aspects that an individual needs to do, two main things. First thing is learning. Basically, they need to know what is the other diverse person it requires, how they actually act, what exactly that you need to behave, etc., etc. That is learning part. The second part is empathy. You should actually put yourself and put yourself into the other person's brain or a place or whatever it is, and understand their point of view. So you should have that ability, empathy, right? So learning, so learning can happen in various ways, right? Another important aspect as far as each individual is concerned is communication. So you need to know how to deal with this diversity when it comes to communications. You can't talk same, right? Especially with various diverse cultures or genders or whatever it is, the language that you use, the way that you communicate cannot be same. Okay, so you need to actually understand that particular factor. So these are some of the important things from the point of view of individual. Okay, and manager should be open to feedback. So when they actually get feedback, they should be taking it positively. If you are a manager as an individual, if you want to understand diversity, you should be able to listen people well, right, and take the feedback. So now coming to the organization approach. Now how organizations approach this particular diversity, right? They have multiple programs that they conduct, right? One is testing, second is training, mentoring. Okay, these are some of the, and work life, certain work life related design aspects would also be conducted, right? So now what exactly is testing? Okay, so this is about you choosing the employee with right diversity, I mean, mentality. So basically when you are recruiting itself, you are testing whether this particular employee is fit in a diverse environment or not. This is first part. The second part is training. So once you take it, you are sensitizing them, and you are also sensitizing the managers that okay, this is how things work. That is training part. Mentoring, you are actually associating a mentor or a coach, and they would actually guide these particular employees at the workplace. So these are the approaches from the management organization point of view. Now we are going into identification of skills, interests, and aspiration of the person. So this is more on a mentoring point. So basically how you are going to identify or bring out skills and interests from the person, right? So First, there are several steps. Mentoring is the aspect which could actually bring these particular skills or interests and whatever, identifying it, right? Secure the support of top management. Before you start mentoring, you actually say that, okay, yes, you are actually doing this particular mentoring exercise. Second, right, identify mentors and proteges. So basically people who are getting mentored and also mentors, both needs to be identified. And then provide orientation to both mentor and mentee. I don't know this word protege. I'm My assumption is protege is nothing but mentee, because that is the word that I know as the word here. But anyway, so basically you need to orient both of them, the one who is mentoring, the one who is taking the mentorship. Okay, meet regularly throughout the program. Make sure that you actually see their progress. Okay, and at the end of the program, you take the feedback from both of them. These are the typical steps for any mentoring program which would be conducted by the organization. Okay, so now comes to the multicultural as cultural factors. Okay, so there are actually now we are talking about multicultural organization, which is slightly different from diversity. Diversity talked about I mean, gender, age, various things, right? So multicultural talks about mainly cultural aspects, diversity from the angle of culture. Okay, so typically multicultural organizations will have like mixed backgrounds, mixed culture people. Okay, and whoever is going to actually contribute back to the organization would all be part of it, right? So so it is like, I mean, they are all, a true multicultural organization would make all these, I mean, the second point, which is reflects the contribution and interest of diverse culture, etc., etc. What that point is trying to say here is, in your strategy and mission statement, you are going to include multiple cultural background people. So a true multicultural organization would start accommodating all these culturals and diversities in their mission, in their operations, in their products, in their service. They're going to put it in all places. Okay. So this actually, I mean, this kind of an organization shows the commitment towards the social oppression. So basically they are promoting this multiculture to actually display their particular commitment towards the eradication of social oppression. Okay, so so obviously this comes from the social responsibilities point of view. Okay, so this eliminating the social oppression is nothing but one of those particular CSRs, the external social responsibility which organizations are expected to play, right? And these organizations includes these members which are from multiple diversities, and they actually enable them to take decisions. So they are in decision taking authorities. They will include in that, right? So this is how you create multicultural organization. So until now the points that we read is on how you are creating the multicultural organization. Next we are going to check on the characteristics of multicultural organization, right? Actually speaking, so this is something that we could predict to some extent, right? One is pluralism, right? Here what we are saying, we are actually having mixed membership. You are going to have people from various diversities, not just from one dominating group in all your things, right? Full structural integration, okay, at all levels, not only in all groups. You are going to have at all levels functioning, should have these diverse or multicultural stuff. Second is integration of informal networks. So not only these official structures, even your informal structures, like whether social events or some mentoring programs or whatever that you actually do apart from these official structures, even that is well integrated, right? And here you are not going to stereotype and have any bias against these particular cultures, whether it is minority or majority. majority or whatever it is. So equal identification of goals. You should have similar goals for all of them. It should be depending on the job that they do, but not exactly the cultural aspects, right? And intergroup as conflicts should be minimal. That is about characteristics of multicultural organization. Now going into the stages of creation. Okay, so first stage is exclusionary stage. So so what is the stages of first, let me give you what is the stages. So these are not steps, this is stages. So basically we are starting from an organization which is not at all multicultural, that is exclusionary organization. They will have exclusively one dominant group and they don't bother about accommodating anything. It starts with this exclusionary organization. Next is club organization. Little better than exclusionary organization. You recruit people, but the person who is recruiting is from certain background. The power is with the certain background, but you have all of them within the organization. Next, compliance organization. Okay, so you hire and you are not really restricting anything from the power point of view, but you are not proactive, you are not doing anything, right? This is just happening by chance. You just recruit. If diversity comes, it comes. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. You will not really do any training, you will not do any sensitizing, all those stuff. It just happens. You are not proactive at all. Okay, next is affirmative action. Affirmative action is proactive commitment. Okay, so you actually do certain action to make sure that you are promoting the diversity. Okay. So but here you are doing an affirmative action, that means you are going to give promotion to a less diverse staff because you want to promote diversity in the upper staff. So affirmative action means you are doing deliberate, but there might be a chance, there is an impression that this organization might have less competent staff as well, just to accommodate diversity aspect. Okay, so now coming to redefining organization, right? It is like it will evaluate, it will see the diversity holistically and effectively, and it also creates that value diversity related aspects, and it gives all the employees for equal growth and all those stuff, and takes extra steps so that this advantages of this particular diversity can be gathered. Okay, so this is redefining organization. So now multicultural organization. So this is like epitome of multiculturalness. So it has got cultural aspect core to this particular organization. So this is born to actually support multicultural stuff, right? So the core cultural values are on the diversity, and they have ongoing commitment, and there is no discrimination at all in this particular organization. It eliminates all forms of discrimination throughout the organization, right? So this is multicultural organization. Okay, so now these are the 6 types of organizations. Okay, so frankly speaking, there seems to be very less gap between redefining organization and multicultural organization, except the part that the cultural aspects are core cultural aspects as far as multicultural organization. Otherwise, I see that redefining organization is also taking full value as far as the diversity is concerned. Okay. So last one is, I mean, next one after multicultural, and this is the last one for the unit as well, which is multicultural organization as a competitive advantage. So multicultural is not just about the social responsibility. There are few advantages as well which come with multicultural. So there is now the moment you are open to hire from various cultures, you have more talent. So you can recruit from any one of them. You have more people. You can actually identify what is the best of talent from all the diverse cultures and recruit. And you can develop products which are much more sellable in the diverse markets, right? So there are multiple advantages. First, from the cost wise, it's like, so you could probably choose whatever is the less costly for you, wherever you are going to get the talent which is less costly. Okay, and it can bring down your overall cost for the organization. Two, resource acquisition is simple because you have more talent now. Marketing, you can gain better insights in various markets. Creativity, you are bringing various perspectives onto the table. Problem solving, so you are actually having more diverse perspectives. That means you have more heads which can solve complex problems. Next is system flexibility. So tolerance, cultural aspects, empathy, a lot built into organization. Hence, your system is more flexible and tolerant in nature. Right. So these are the some of the advantages of multicultural organizations. So this ends unit 3 of block 2. Okay. So now we are going into unit 4. So this is one of the shortest units. Okay. So hopefully this is something that we can complete within very short time. So even from the questions point of view, there are not many questions that were asked in this particular unit. So what we are going to learn in this, right? First and foremost, the it starts with globalization. Okay. So globalization is one thing which was actually discussed in various ways, various forms throughout. Okay, so this is nothing, this is not talking anything distinct. So this is actually talking from all those particular, so it's kind of a repetition from the globalization point of view. Okay, so it is very unlikely that there would be any question related to globalization from this unit, because there are certain units which are mainly targeting globalization. Okay, so this is actually a very smaller material as far as globalization is concerned. Okay, so anyway, and then once it goes in, and then it talks about driving forces. Okay, so what exactly are the driving forces for this globalization? So what is driving people to globalize, right? And then it talks about HRM's role in the changing environment. Okay, and then it actually goes into competencies of HR managers and what are the typical dilemmas that they face as a HR head. Okay, and what are the future roles and responsibilities of HR professionals. This is how it actually goes. So it starts with globalization and then going into driving forces for the globalization and HR's role as far as these global markets are concerned, and so on. Okay, so let's start with it. So I'm not going to explain what is globalization. Okay, so because every one of us knows what exactly globalization, right? I mean, to be very simple, it is like your organization entered into global markets. That means you have presence in multiple countries. That creates globalized company or organization, right? So this term means integration of business activities across geographical boundaries within, and they are within the organization boundaries. Obviously, a single organization expanding across various geographical boundaries is what it is, right? So it is like it brings a broader perspective from the organization point of view, and it brings lot of challenges, etc., right? Because every country is different, they have different laws, they have different cultures, etc., right? So that is globalization in short, right? So what are the driving factors, why exactly companies do, right? First is market drivers. So I mean, obviously you want to market it in the other countries. So there are different lifestyles, there is a different per capita income, so maybe they can afford your product better, etc. And even their behavior suits your product. So there are few market drivers. That market is much more, what do you say, conducive to your product, right? Cost drivers, maybe manufacturing in that particular country is less, taxations would be less, that would make your product much more viable, right? So those kind of cost drivers are also there. Second is competitive drivers. A third is competitive drivers, right? So maybe you have lesser competition there, you have better partnerships over there. So those are competitive drivers. Fourth one is government drivers. So basically you have laws or tariffs or taxes which are in favor to you. Okay, maybe they are giving something like SCZ, or they are giving tax rebates or whatever it is. So that is government drivers. So four: market drivers, cost drivers, competitive drivers, government drivers. These are four drivers for an organization why they want to be globalized. Okay. So now going further, so now we are talking about HRM role in this changing environment. Okay. So before that, there is a short section which talks about impact of globalization on HR functions. Okay. So this has got a very generic uh, content, right? HR is a very strategic position, and globalization brings lot of complexity as far as HR is concerned. Now they will have to cater for various cultures. They will have to cater for different kinds of staff. Okay, and particularly what we talked about, diverse organizations, these particular staff will be there at all levels of the organization. So they need to actually tune their recruitment, tune their training, tune their every process according to this particular culture. So that is what is the impact of globalization on functions. So it is a very generic content which talks about how exactly HR is impacted. Okay. So even because of this globalization, there could be certain new structures as well within HR, right? You might have global HR and those kind of concepts as well, which might not be there for a non-globalization organization, which they will have to deal with. So now we are going into HRM. What is their role as far as HRM is concerned in the changing environment? This is little similar to whatever the text that I actually talked about above, but this has got few points, right? So obviously, first point is, I mean, with this particular environment, HR required to transform their stuff, right? Otherwise, they can't really handle this particular complexity of globalization. And not just about, employees being there. So here the question is all about the changing environment. Now we have virtual teams, people working from anywhere, work from home is being done everywhere. So this is kind of a very different environment when compared to earlier. So now they will have to um, monitor employees who are not physically there. They might have to actually give, uh, I mean, how to actually inculcate that organizational commitment, or whether you're going to actually, how you're going to measure their performance. Everything changes when it comes to this virtual work, right? So organizations do have a different challenge. How exactly they can shape up the behavior of the people without even face-to-face meetings is a big challenge that it actually brings into this particular mix, right? So obviously, they require. See, if we are again going back to the multicultural angle, if the organization is there in multiple countries, there are certain written and also unwritten policies which they need to be worried about in each place, because every place is different here, right? So even HR managers will have to actually, get this particular cultural aspects trained. Their capabilities has to be, increased in terms of handling for the better handling of the people. And there are certain complexities as well. So we talked about stereotyping, right? This is actually a um, kind of a stereotyping, but research driven, where every culture will have different strengths, different weaknesses, right? They might actually, there is an example that is given where where the British managers look every individual achievement. Okay, so basically French managers look it into supervision or fringe benefits kind of a thing. Okay, so it's like every buddy, I mean, it's rather positives and negatives. Instead of positives and negatives, we are saying that every culture will have a different perspective. So HR needs to understand this particular perspective. Okay, so So they should be familiar in understanding all these cultural norms and then promote the diversities. So this is what is the answer for role of HR in changing environment. This is once asked in this particular chapter. Okay. So now going into competency of HR managers. So they should be flexible, teamwork, communication, decisiveness, leadership, strategic planning. I think all these points are self-explanatory. They need to be organizational awareness should be there, self-confidence should be there, their communication should be there. So if you remember, this reminded me, all these points reminded me some of the characteristics or rather leadership characteristics to some extent. Okay, see some of these particular points reminded me of that, right? So maybe some aspects might be different, like multi-language competencies is also there. Global cultural understanding might be missing over there, but yeah, but otherwise leader should be flexible. Similarly, HR manager should be flexible. They should understand teamwork. Their communication should be good. They should be decisive in nature, right? They should have that particular leadership characteristics. They should have like strategic planning in their thing. So all these things are competencies of a HR manager. Okay, so now going further, what are the typical dilemmas that a HR head face? Okay, so first dilemma is aligning HR to business. Okay, second dilemma is training and development, how training and development should actually happen. The third dilemma is factors affecting HR him in global market, and then HR functions in international firms, international HRM and global HRM, new trends in international HRM. Right. So these are some of the dilemmas which is faced by HR head. Right. The first and foremost, aligning HR to business. Okay. So obviously we read in strategic HR management, alignment to the strategy from the HR point of view is very very critical, right? So you need to align it at every stage. So right from the stage of defining the strategy to the resourcing the right talent, retaining of the talent, and retraining, restructuring, all these things needs to align to the business strategy. Okay. So ability and willingness to modify job structure, job classification. When there is a structural change, HR should be able to redesign their particular job structure, redesign these particular certain job classifications and all those stuff, right? They should be able to manage expectations. So let's say organization strategy decides that this is what is the change, the pressure that actually change puts needs to be managed by HR, and so they need to align to that particular thing. So especially this particular alignment that we talk about is not superficial, it's rather very deep into the picture, where the roots are something which are mapped. The root of your strategy is going to be mapped, business strategy would be mapped for the HR strategy, right? So you need to identify the real goals of the business and reach to those particular goals, right? So there are certain minute aspects when we talk about strategy, right? Strategy doesn't talk about how to satisfy an employee or increase the organizational commitment of the employee. These are just side effects. So strategy, when you roll it down, these are the aspects which are like side effects which is going to come depending upon what is the main pillar of your strategy. Okay, so so that's how it works. So next we are going into training and development. Obviously, first thing is about you need to understand what is the need for training. So need for training really depends on, especially when we are talking about performance training. So it actually depends on what exactly is the standard performance and what is the current performance. So then if the standard performance is more than actual performance, that means there is a training need, right? So there is one aspect which it talks about this section is what is the difference between the training and education. So education is more classroom centric, okay, whereas training is something which is job centric, right? And generally training is given on the specific aspects. Education is done on the general aspects. It's a broad perspective education, right? And it is mostly theoretical learning that happens within the class, whereas training is more an application orientation, whereas education is theoretical orientation. Okay, so but education and training both happens complementary. You need to have some basic education to get trained. Okay, and at the end of every training, you are getting educated. Your education is getting enhanced, right? So this is what is the training and education is concerned. Now we are going into the factors affecting HRM in global market. Okay, so there are a number of factors that are found that affect the HRM in global market. For example, culture, economic system, political system, human capital. These are the four things which are the factors that affect HRM in global market. That means cultural aspects, HR, the way cultural factor affects the HR. The way they do handle multiple cultures, it affects economic systems. Obviously, your rewards, compensations, etc., etc. You design based on the economic system of that country. Political system. If there are some leader rules saying that boss, you can't really compel employee to have 3 months notice while they are going away, then they can't do it. So in some companies, uh, when it comes to Western countries, the relieving time is only 1 month. But when it comes to India, the relieving time is 3 months, right? So basically, those are the legal frameworks which are available, which companies needs to HRM would be affected because of that. Right, human capital, the nature of people that are available would also affect this particular thing. Okay, so that actually concludes training and development part of it, and also factors that are affecting HRM in global market. Okay, so now HR functions in international firm, right? So what are the general functions as far as this international firm is concerned? Okay, so first thing is recruitment. Recruitment would be done in all the thing, right? So it's like the main crux of this particular HR function is how they manage this particular delicate balance between the host country and also the country which they are operating on, right? How exactly that balance would be maintained, how coordination will be done across the country, right? How you are going to bridge the cultural differences. So these are some of the HR functions as far as the international HR is concerned. Okay. So now what is the the next thing is, what is this particular international HRM? What is this global HRM? Okay. So the international HRM is the one who is actually taking care of recruitment, international recruitment. You are recruiting somewhere else, right? And you are actually managing development in the international organization. Okay, so that is what is the international HRM is, right? The bringing the people or human resource, whatever that is required from the, I mean, across borders. Okay, that is what is the international HRM is. So whereas global HRM is really talking about managing the globalization aspect of the HR. Okay, so all the cultural differences, etc., that we talked about are something which global HRM does have as as a role, right? So that is about the international HRM and the global HRM. Okay, so now next thing is new trends in international HRM. Okay, what are the new trends? So this is one more question which was asked. Okay, there are very few questions that is asked in this particular section, in this particular unit. This is one of the questions that was asked. What are the new trends? Okay, so selection of employees requires careful evaluation of their personal characteristics of both candidate and also spouse. So you need to actually check for their mentality. We talked about testing above, right? If you have to create a diverse organization, first thing is your recruitment should happen in a proper way. So that is exactly what this is saying. Next is training and development. Okay. So basically, this training and development should cover multiple aspects. They should actually cover even this cultural shock, career development risks across these particular cultures, re-entry problems. These are some of the fringe or rather not so common training programs, but managers should be doing this as well, right? They should be able to, international HRM should be able to balance pros and cons of home country and also host country. Evaluations. What is these evaluations that we are talking about? We are talking about performance evaluation and the other things. The way you judge people, you should actually, what it is saying is you have a host country, which is the international, it is the country which is like on the other international boundary, right? And home country wherever this head office is there. So you need to balance these evaluations. So you can't really have same evaluation across. At the same time, all the evaluations should convert somewhere, right? So that balance needs to be made somewhere. The compensation should be aligned, okay, and it should be customized for the local conditions. So you should have that strategic intent, but it should be customized again, okay. And so there are various laws again, which is going to come into picture. Okay, in European Union, there seems to be some law which is governing the salaried employees and other stuff. That is an example. Even in India, I think there are many laws which actually govern these policies. Right. So these are some of the new trends as far as international HRM is concerned. Okay. So what are these typical steps that HR manager should take? Okay. So they should actually use workforce skills and abilities. That means they should be, whatever the skills that they have, they should be able to better utilize them. So basically there are human which is already there, you should better utilize those particular people. So you need to actually have some employee reward plans. You should probably reward employees. You should focus on quality, that is continuous quality enhancement. You should focus, okay, utilize people distinctive capability. You should be able to utilize people's capability, right? Whatever the distinctness that is there, you should be able to utilize. Decentralized operation, so you should be able to decentralize and have self-managed teams, okay. And when there is a layoff, you should be able to handle. So these are some of the steps that are taken by HR managers. Okay, HR managers today are focusing on what they are focusing currently. They're focusing on policies, so they make new policies. They are focusing on motivation. So basically, they are trying to motivate employees. Relations, it is about maintaining the relationship between the employees. Change agent, so that means they are actually playing an active part as far as any change to the organization is concerned, right? Quality consciousness, basically making employees very conscious about the quality aspect. So these are the steps to be taken by HR managers. The first is, looks like, are the qualities that a manager would require, and the second thing is about what are the focus items that he needs to actually see. So what is the future role of HR professionals? Okay, so HR professionals will actually, we now they are more seen as strategic rather than merely administrative. Okay, and and they will have to continuously strive to make sure that they are effective. But not only for HR professional, this statement is motherhood statement true for any person. You need to continuously try so that you actually stay effective and exist. Otherwise, people will ignore you, right? So that is true for HR professional as well. Okay, they should be able to understand international business practices and promote cultural diversity in the organization, right? And they should prove their initiatives and programs are result oriented. Basically, they are measurable, result oriented is what they want to prove, whatever the initiatives that they taken. So these are some of the future roles as far as the HR is concerned. Okay, so now there are other dimensions, right? So whatever that we talked about as points, the first point is about HR being more strategic rather than administrative, right? So how HR role needs to be seen in the future role. You need to see HR from the point of view of a strategic partner, one who is going to assist you in taking the strategy and make sure they have a parallel strategy for HR specifically. Okay, so they do have knowledge of that business objectives. They know what is the organization strategy, and then they will break down that organization strategy and put the strategy for their HR services, whether to the reward structure, recruitment structure, or whatever it is, right? So this is expanding on the same first point, which is HR is now more strategic rather than administrative, right? Now, second point is about HR being an employee advocate. For HR, who is the customer? For HR, it is humans, which are employees, are the customer, right? So HR should be worried about making sure that they actually meet whatever that these particular employees really require to. They need to strive towards employee development. They need to assist employees on various things. They should do a proper compensation, profit sharing, gain sharing. All those perspectives should be brought by HR. So they should be an employee advocative. Okay, so HR as a change champion. So we already talked about the change. We talked about change agent as one of the points, right? So HR needs to facilitate change within the organization. So they play an important role, important role by taking the change into the people aspect, right? So that is what. So they need to actually play a change champion role. That's all is about this unit. That sums it up, right? So now we have completed block 2 of HRD with this unit 4.